The night on Earth was still and peaceful, the stars shining brightly in the sky above. A light breeze whispered through the trees, and the air felt calm, as if the planet itself was at rest. Jake, a seasoned soldier, sat on his porch, his weary body finally taking a moment to relax after the chaos of the day. His cybernetic pet, Maximus, a mechanical dog with advanced AI, sat loyally by his side. The dog was a marvel of technology, designed for companionship and protection. Its metallic body gleamed under the moonlight, and its artificial intelligence was so sophisticated that it felt more like a true friend than a machine. Jake often thought of Maximus as a companion, not just a pet. The bond they shared was deep, he had been through many battles, and Maximus had always been there, guiding him through danger. Together, they made an unbeatable team. The mechanical dog wasn't just for protection, it also had a calming presence, a reminder of humanity's ability to fuse technology with emotion. But tonight was different. As Jake sat in the cool night air, he noticed something strange. Maximus suddenly raised its head, ears twitching as if hearing something Jake could not. The dog's eyes, normally a soft blue, flickered briefly with an unsettling glow. Maximus' low growl broke the silence, and Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. It was a sound of warning, something was wrong. Jake's hand instinctively reached for his weapon, though he couldn't see any immediate threat. The area around them was peaceful, the trees still, and the sky clear. Yet Maximus' posture became more rigid, its mechanical body tense as it continued to scan the surroundings. Jake squinted into the darkness, his heart rate picking up. He felt something was coming. He wasn't sure what, but the sense of danger was unmistakable. Without warning, the air grew heavy, and a sudden, bone-chilling silence fell. Even the usual sounds of insects and rustling leaves seemed to vanish. Jake's instincts kicked in, he was a soldier, and danger was something he knew all too well. "Maximus, stay close," he murmured under his breath, his grip tightening on his weapon. In that instant, a shadow moved from the darkness. A figure emerged from the trees, its presence almost ghostly as it stepped forward with unnatural grace. It was an alien, humanoid in shape, but its armor was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The mercenary was clad in a sleek exosuit, black and shiny, reflecting the dim light of the moon. His movements were fluid, almost predatory, and his eyes, cold and emotionless, locked onto Jake and Maximus. The alien's weapon was drawn, a plasma blade that hummed with energy. Maximus barked, a high-pitched sound that echoed through the silence, its body suddenly charging forward to protect its owner. The dog was fast, agile, and strong, but the alien mercenary was faster, more experienced, and deadly. The plasma blade came down in a blur, striking Maximus with surgical precision. There was no time for Jake to react, Maximus' body was cut clean through, its metal frame sizzling as it was disintegrated by the plasma energy. The loyal pet, the one companion Jake had trusted, was gone in an instant. Jake stood frozen, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. His heart raced, and his breath caught in his throat as he watched Maximus' body crumble to the ground. The robot dog's artificial eyes flickered once more before they went dark. In that moment, everything seemed to stop, time stood still as Jake's world shattered. The grief was overwhelming, the loss of Maximus felt like a punch to the gut. He had lost a friend, a partner, and the one thing that made him feel truly human amidst the chaos of his life. The alien mercenary stood over the remains of the dog, his expression cold and indifferent. With a casual flick of his wrist, he deactivated his plasma blade. He didn't look at Jake, didn't show any signs of remorse. To him, this was just another mission, another day in the life of a hired killer. Without a word, the mercenary pressed a button on his suit, and in an instant, he vanished from sight, his form disappearing into thin air, cloaked by an advanced cloaking device. Jake was left standing in the silence, staring at the place where Maximus had been just moments before. His hands shook as he reached down, lifting a small, scorched piece of Maximus' body. The grief consumed him, and the reality of the situation hit him hard. This wasn't just an attack on him, it was an attack on everything he stood for. Earth had been marked, and it was no longer safe. Jake's grief was raw, and it cut deep. He had lost soldiers in battle before, but this loss was different. Maximus was more than just a machine to him, it was the embodiment of humanity's progress, the proof that they could create technology that cared, that could protect and connect with people. Now, that symbol of hope and progress was gone, taken away by an alien mercenary who seemed to care little for the life of a mechanical companion. The emptiness inside Jake grew as the anger began to bubble to the surface. The rage was fiery, a deep, unquenchable desire for revenge. But it wasn't just about Maximus anymore. It was about a message. The alien mercenary had crossed a line, and this was no longer just a personal loss, it was an attack on humanity. The universe needed to understand that Earth was not to be underestimated. Jake felt something shift inside him, a sense of purpose that had been missing for years. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. It was about sending a message to every alien race out there who thought they could come to Earth, harm its people, and get away with it. Jake wasn't just fighting for his fallen companion, he was fighting for the future of Earth itself. Jake's anguish slowly transformed into determination. The emotions swirling inside him, grief, anger, and a sense of helplessness, became the fuel that would drive him forward. He knew the galaxy was filled with powerful enemies, but he also knew that humanity had something that no one else had, the will to survive. Back at Earth's High Command, the incident didn't go unnoticed. The attack had been swift, precise, and deadly. Earth's leadership understood that this wasn't just an isolated attack, it was a declaration of war from one of the galaxy's most dangerous mercenaries. This was the point of no return. Earth had been pushed too far. In a top-secret facility deep beneath the surface of Earth, a drastic decision was made. Earth's High Command ordered the awakening of the Cryo-Sleep super soldiers, a group of genetically enhanced humans who had been frozen for centuries, preserved for the sole purpose of protecting the planet from the most advanced and dangerous alien threats. These soldiers were not ordinary humans, they had been genetically modified, their abilities amplified far beyond the normal human capacity. They were the last line of defense against the galaxy's most powerful enemies. As Jake stood over the remains of Maximus, a sense of clarity washed over him. He had no time to mourn. His world was changing, and if Earth was to survive, it needed to strike back. It was time to call upon humanity's greatest weapon, deep beneath Earth's surface, hidden in a top-secret military facility, a quiet hum echoed through the cold, sterile environment. The facility was isolated from the rest of the world, designed for only one purpose, to store Earth's greatest weapon, the Cryo-Sleep soldiers. These soldiers had been preserved in massive cryo chambers for centuries, awaiting the moment when humanity would need them most. That moment had arrived. The cryo chambers, sleek and metallic, began to buzz as the systems powered up. Inside each chamber lay a soldier, frozen in time. The process of thawing was slow at first, their bodies gradually coming to life after years of suspended animation. The soldiers' eyes flickered open one by one, their breathing shallow and labored. They were disoriented, confused, unsure of where they were. The cold, metallic walls around them seemed alien and unfamiliar. For a brief moment, they felt as though they were trapped in a dream, their minds clouded and distant. But as the haze of sleep began to lift, their memories slowly resurfaced. They remembered who they were, why they were here. These soldiers had volunteered for this mission long before they entered Cryo-Sleep. They had been chosen for their unparalleled combat skills and enhanced abilities, and they had been frozen with one single purpose in mind, to defend Earth from the galaxy's most dangerous threats. The soldiers had been genetically enhanced, their bodies stronger, faster, and more resilient than the average human. They were the pinnacle of humanity's military strength, designed to face challenges beyond anything the world had seen before. As their minds cleared, the soldiers quickly rose from their chambers, their movements stiff at first but becoming more fluid as they adapted to the world around them. They looked at each other, strangers, yet comrades, and understood the task at hand. The world had changed. Earth was under attack, and they had been awakened to fight back. Jake, though still recovering from the shock of losing Maximus, stood tall among the newly awakened soldiers. He had been chosen to lead the team, not only because of his leadership skills but because of the personal connection to the mission. His pet had been killed by the alien mercenary, and now it was his responsibility to ensure that the mercenary, and anyone else who dared threaten Earth, was brought to justice. The anger from losing Maximus burned within him, and it was this fire that would drive him forward. As Jake surveyed the team, he saw a group of individuals who were as diverse as they were skilled. Each one had a past that haunted them, a reason for fighting that was deeply personal. Bonner, a towering soldier with muscles like steel, stood silently at the back. His face was weathered with scars, and his eyes carried the weight of past battles. He had been a soldier once before, but the loss of his comrades in a brutal war had left him emotionally scarred. He had volunteered for Cryo-Sleep to escape his past, but now, the time for escape was over. The war had found him again, and he was ready to fight. Sarah, a young tech genius, was the complete opposite of Bonner. Her small frame belied the immense intellect inside her head. With short, fiery red hair and a sharp, calculating gaze, Sarah was a master of technology. She had the ability to hack into alien systems with ease, a skill that would prove invaluable in the coming battle. Her desire to prove herself, to be seen as more than just a genius, pushed her forward. She had always been underestimated, but now she had a chance to show the world what she could do. Marcus, a lean, ruthless combatant, stood with his arms crossed. His expression was unreadable, a dark shadow cast over his face. He had a past filled with violence, betrayal, and secrets. His hands were stained with blood, and though he had left that life behind, it was always lurking just beneath the surface. He was a soldier, but not a soldier of honor. He fought because he had nothing left to lose. His hatred for the alien mercenaries burned as fiercely as the others, but for him, it was personal. He had his own demons to fight. Together, this unlikely team formed an unstoppable force. Each one was driven by something different, but they were all united by one goal: to track down the alien mercenary who had killed Jake's pet, Maximus, and to punish him for his crime. Along the way, they would face countless other enemies, both human and alien, but their mission was clear. Earth had been threatened, and now it was time to strike back. The soldiers suited up in their advanced armor, each piece of equipment designed to enhance their combat abilities. Their weapons were cutting-edge, designed for the most extreme situations. As they gathered around the central command table, Jake looked over the mission brief. The alien mercenary who had killed Maximus was a member of a dangerous mercenary group known for working with the highest bidder. They were ruthless, efficient, and nearly impossible to track. But Jake's determination was unwavering. He knew this wasn't just a personal mission, it was about sending a message to the galaxy. "We're not just hunting one mercenary," Jake said, his voice calm but firm. "We're sending a message to anyone who thinks they can come to Earth and get away with murder. The time of Earth being a target is over. We fight back, and we fight to win." His words resonated with the team. Each of them had their own reasons for fighting, but they understood the weight of what was at stake. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about survival. Earth had been attacked, and they were the ones who would defend it. They would stop at nothing to protect their home. The soldiers were ready. The mercenaries who had dared to harm humanity would soon learn that when you awaken Earth's greatest weapon, there is no going back. The cryo soldiers, now fully awake and primed for battle, boarded their advanced starship, the Resolute, ready to pursue the alien mercenary across the galaxy. Their starship, a sleek and heavily armed vessel, was equipped with cutting-edge technology, designed to match the formidable enemies they were about to face. Inside the control room, Jake stood at the helm, his gaze focused on the holographic star map projected before him. The universe stretched out, vast and uncharted, filled with countless dangers. "We'll need to track him down, one system at a time," Jake said, his voice steady and calm. "Stay sharp. Every corner of this galaxy is a potential threat." The crew was ready, and the mission was clear. The alien mercenary was not just hiding on some faraway planet, he was traveling across the stars, leaving a trail of destruction wherever he went. And the team was determined to find him, no matter the cost. The Resolute's engines roared to life, and the ship shot forward at incredible speeds, entering warp space and traveling faster than the speed of light. But despite their speed, every new system they entered seemed more dangerous than the last. The first stop was a barren moon, its surface scarred by ancient battles. As the soldiers landed, they quickly realized the moon wasn't as empty as it appeared. Alien creatures, larger and fiercer than anything they'd encountered on Earth, emerged from the shadows. With claws that could rip through steel and teeth sharp enough to tear through metal, they attacked without warning. A violent firefight erupted. Jake led the charge, his weapon blasting laser rounds at the creatures, while Sarah hacked into the local security systems, causing the base's automated defenses to fire at their attackers. Marcus and Bonner fought hand-to-hand with the beasts, their combat prowess unmatched. The team moved as one, coordinating perfectly and leaving a trail of chaos behind them. As the battle ended and the creatures retreated into the darkness, the soldiers knew they were just getting started. The galaxy was vast and filled with dangers they hadn't even begun to comprehend. But they pushed forward, determined to find the mercenary and take vengeance for what had been done to Jake's pet. Their journey continued, each planet more hostile than the last. On a distant jungle planet, they fought off an army of AI-controlled drones, sent to guard a hidden alien base. These drones were sophisticated, capable of learning and adapting to the soldiers' tactics. But the Cryo-Sleep soldiers were no strangers to warfare. Working together, they used their cloaking devices to infiltrate the base undetected, striking swiftly before the drones had time to react. Explosions rocked the base as they planted charges and destroyed enemy tech, ensuring that nothing would stand in their way. Next, they infiltrated a massive space station floating in the orbit of a gas giant. The station, once a research facility, had long since fallen into the hands of mercenaries and criminals. The soldiers slipped through the station's corridors, using stealth technology to avoid detection, but danger was never far away. Every corner seemed to hide a trap, and every hallway echoed with the sounds of approaching guards. As the team engaged in brutal close-quarters combat, gunfire filled the halls, and flashes of explosions lit up the darkened space. With each mission, their resolve grew stronger, and the team's bond became unbreakable. They weren't just hunting the mercenary anymore, they were proving something to the universe. Earth wasn't just another planet in the galaxy. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Meanwhile, the alien mercenary was beginning to feel the pressure. He had spent years moving through the galaxy, hired by the highest bidder to eliminate anyone who stood in his way. Fear was a feeling he had never known. He was a killer, a professional mercenary, and nothing had ever come close to challenging him. But now, as the humans began to strike, he felt something creeping into his thoughts, doubt. At first, he thought it was a coincidence. The humans couldn't possibly be tracking him, right? They were primitive, weak, emotional creatures, unworthy of his attention. He had thought Earth was just a backwater planet, full of people who lacked the strength or technology to defend themselves. He had underestimated them. But as the Resolute began to leave a trail of destruction through the galaxy, the mercenary realized that these humans were not the weaklings he had assumed. They were relentless, intelligent, and more dangerous than he had anticipated. Each attack, each encounter, only made them stronger. The Cryo-Sleep soldiers had come to Earth's defense, and they were hunting him down with a singular purpose: revenge. The mercenary had always relied on his speed and efficiency. He would strike fast, leave no trace, and move on to the next job. But these humans, these soldiers, had something that scared him: persistence. They kept coming, refusing to back down. He had always been in control, always the one doing the hunting, but now, he was the one being hunted. The fear gnawed at him. He had never been afraid of anything before, but now he could feel the walls closing in. The soldiers weren't just good, they were better than he had expected. Their technology, their tactics, their unyielding will to survive, it was all beginning to take a toll on him. And that terrified him. He began to make mistakes. He underestimated the humans once more, thinking they couldn't possibly anticipate his next move. But they did. As his fleet was ambushed in the depths of space by a stealth attack from the Resolute, his fear grew. The soldiers had infiltrated his command ship without him even realizing it. Their technology was so far advanced, so far beyond anything he had encountered, that it felt like they had anticipated every move he made. For the first time in his career, the alien mercenary was unsure of himself. He had underestimated Earth, and now, the full weight of humanity's vengeance was closing in on him. The humans were no longer the weak, primitive species he had once thought them to be. They were a force to be reckoned with, and he was beginning to realize that this fight was one he might not survive. After a long and treacherous journey across the galaxy, the Cryo-Sleep soldiers finally tracked the mercenary to his final hideout, an abandoned alien fortress floating in the cold, dark void of space. The structure was ancient and imposing, surrounded by nothing but the emptiness of space. It looked like something out of a nightmare, an abandoned monument to a forgotten civilization. The walls were made of dark metallic alloys, and the entire fortress seemed to be barely holding together, its exterior cracked and worn with age. It was the perfect place for a final showdown, hidden far from civilization, where no one would come to help. As the Resolute docked in the shadow of the fortress, the team prepared for what was to come. The atmosphere inside the ship was tense, every member of the team ready for the fight of their lives. They knew this battle would be different from all the others. This was not just about vengeance for Jake's fallen pet, it was about saving Earth from the wrath of a mercenary who had underestimated humanity. It was about showing the galaxy that Earth was not to be taken lightly. The soldiers moved out, using their cloaking technology to stay hidden from any surveillance systems the mercenary might have left active. Every corner of the fortress was a potential danger, and every step they took had to be calculated. Their mission was clear: find the mercenary, defeat him, and bring an end to the threat once and for all. But the mercenary wasn't about to go down without a fight. As the team infiltrated deeper into the fortress, the mercenary's senses tingled. He knew they were close. With a calm, practiced motion, he activated his army of AI-controlled drones and robotic guards. These machines, built for war, were the ultimate defense. They were powerful, relentless, and could calculate and adapt to any strategy the soldiers used. But the soldiers were ready. This was the moment they had trained for, and they would not back down. With a loud hum, the AI drones burst to life, their red eyes glowing ominously as they swarmed to protect their master. They came at the soldiers from all directions, their metallic limbs moving swiftly, each one armed with powerful weapons that could tear through armor and flesh. But Marcus was ready. His massive frame moved with precision as he charged into the horde, his fists landing blows that crushed drones into pieces. The air was filled with the sound of grinding metal and explosions as Marcus fought with savage ferocity. No drone stood a chance against his strength and determination. Sarah, the tech genius, wasn't far behind. While Marcus tore through the drones, she slipped into the fortress control system. Her fingers flew over her wrist-mounted console as she hacked into the security network. Within seconds, she took control of the fortress defense systems. The robotic guards that once posed a serious threat to the team were now turned against the mercenaries' drones. With each command Sarah issued, the tide of the battle shifted in their favor. Jake, however, had only one target in mind: the mercenary. His eyes locked onto the figure standing at the center of the fortress, a cold, calculating killer who had killed his pet and brought them all to this point. The mercenary, clad in his sleek exosuit, stood ready. His advanced technology and combat skills made him a deadly opponent, but Jake wasn't afraid. His rage, his loss, and his burning desire for justice fueled him. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for Earth, and for everything humanity had built. As Jake approached, the mercenary activated his plasma blade, a weapon that hummed with lethal energy. The two warriors clashed in a whirlwind of sparks and energy blasts. The mercenary's movements were fast, precise, he moved with an agility that seemed almost inhuman. But Jake was driven by something deeper. His anger, his grief, and his refusal to let the mercenary escape made him faster, more focused. They exchanged blows, each strike leaving a mark, each movement a calculated risk. The sound of energy blasts filled the air as Jake dodged the mercenary's plasma strikes. They fought hand to hand, both men skilled in combat, but the mercenary's superior technology gave him an edge. For every blow Jake landed, the mercenary would counter with a devastating attack of his own. Their fight took them through the fortress, each hallway a new battleground. The walls were scarred by the force of their blows, the floor littered with debris from the battle. The mercenary taunted Jake, his cold voice echoing through the fortress. "You're nothing. Weak. Human." His voice was filled with contempt, but Jake's eyes burned with an intensity that silenced the mercenary's words. Jake wasn't just fighting for vengeance, he was fighting for the future of Earth, for humanity's right to defend itself against the galaxy's most dangerous threats. With a surge of energy, Jake launched himself at the mercenary, his fist connecting with the exosuit's chest. The force of the blow sent the mercenary stumbling backward, but he quickly recovered. The two combatants continued to circle each other, neither willing to give up. But with each passing moment, Jake's fury grew stronger. He knew the mercenary's weakness, his arrogance. And it was that very arrogance that would be his downfall. The fight continued, each exchange more brutal than the last. Jake's muscles ached, his breath coming in ragged gasps, but he refused to stop. He knew the mercenary was getting tired, and it was only a matter of time before his overconfidence would cost him. Finally, with one last, powerful move, Jake disarmed the mercenary, sending his plasma blade flying across the room. The mercenary stumbled, momentarily disoriented, and that was when Jake struck. With a final, devastating punch, he sent the mercenary crashing to the ground, his body sprawled on the cold floor of the fortress. Jake stood over him, breathing heavily, his fists bloodied but his spirit unbroken. The mercenary was defeated, humanity had triumphed. The soldiers gathered around him, their faces grim but proud. The battle was won, and the mercenary who had once underestimated Earth's strength had been brought to justice. But the war was far from over. The galaxy was filled with more threats, and Jake and his team knew that they would always stand ready to defend Earth. No matter the cost, the final battle between Jake and the mercenary had pushed both warriors to their limits. Bloodied and bruised, they had fought through the entire alien fortress, each blow carrying the weight of their personal battles and the history of their people. Jake's heart pounded in his chest, his body aching, but his mind was focused on one thing: revenge. The mercenary had killed his pet, and by extension, the mercenary represented everything that Earth had suffered at the hands of alien invaders and mercenaries. This fight was not just about one man, one animal. It was about showing the galaxy that Earth would not stand idly by while the strong preyed on the weak. The mercenary, though a skilled fighter, was growing weaker. His armor had been dented, his plasma blade discarded, and his movements were slowing. Jake, on the other hand, was driven by the fire of vengeance. His rage pushed him past his exhaustion, every ounce of his strength focused on taking down the killer who had threatened his world. The mercenary, once so confident, now seemed unsure. His smirk faded, replaced by a look of fear as he realized just how relentless these humans were. Jake's final blow landed with the force of a storm, the punch crashing into the mercenary's chest and sending him sprawling to the cold, metal floor of the alien fortress. The mercenary gasped, his breath short, his hands clutching at his chest. Jake loomed over him, his face a mask of fury and determination. With one last, resolute motion, Jake delivered the killing blow, a strike that ended the mercenary's life in a single instant. As the mercenary's body went still, Jake took a deep, steadying breath. The weight of what he had done, what he had avenged, began to sink in. The mercenary had thought he could easily crush humanity, but Jake had just proven him wrong. Jake's vengeance, in that moment, felt sweet and satisfying, yet there was also a deep sadness in his heart. The death of the mercenary couldn't bring back his pet, nor could it heal the pain that the Earth had endured. But it was a beginning, the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, one where they would no longer be looked down upon or underestimated. As the mercenary took his final breath, he looked up at Jake with wide, terrified eyes. You can't be," he gasped, the words trailing off as his life slipped away. Jake stared down at him, his voice calm but full of conviction. "You never understood us," he said, his voice steady. "You never understood what humanity is capable of." With those final words, Jake turned and walked away, leaving the mercenary's body behind. With the mercenary defeated, the Cryo-Sleep soldiers returned to Earth as heroes. The team's mission had been completed, Earth was safe once more, at least for now. The world erupted in celebration as the soldiers disembarked from their starship, hailed by the public as legends. News outlets across the globe broadcasted their return, and they were greeted with parades and ceremonies. The people of Earth had never felt prouder, knowing that these super soldiers, who had been frozen in time and stored away for such a moment, had emerged when they were needed most. However, for Jake and his team, the victory was bittersweet. The cheers, the celebrations, and the adulation meant little to them. They had done their duty, but the war was far from over. Humanity's enemies were many, and their victory against the mercenary was just one battle in a much larger war. Jake looked out at the crowds, his face stoic. He knew the truth, the galaxy had seen their strength, but more threats were waiting in the shadows. Earth could never let its guard down. The soldiers' return to Earth was short-lived. As soon as the celebrations were over, they knew they would return to their cryo-sleep chambers, to wait until the next mission called them into action. They had trained, fought, and bled together, but their duty was to protect Earth, not to seek fame or glory. And so, after the ceremonies ended, the soldiers once again sealed themselves away in their cryo-chambers, ready for the next time they would be needed. Jake, now at peace with the outcome of his personal vengeance, felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. He had avenged his pet, and he had proven to the galaxy that humanity was no longer the underdog. They had the strength, the will, and the determination to face any enemy, no matter how powerful or advanced. He knew Earth would never be underestimated again. But as he entered his cryo-chamber and closed his eyes, ready to enter another long period of sleep, Jake couldn't help but wonder what awaited Earth in the future. The galaxy was vast, and its dangers were endless. But one thing was certain, humanity had proven it was a force to be reckoned with. As the soldiers once again drifted into cryo-sleep, their bodies frozen in time, the universe remained unaware of the growing threat lurking in the shadows. Far from Earth, on a distant, dark planet, a new alien faction watched with keen interest. They had seen the events unfold, watched as the cryo-sleep soldiers tore through the mercenary's defenses, crushed his forces, and avenged Earth. In their hidden chamber, their leaders whispered in fear. "We underestimated them, and now it's too late." The camera zoomed out, revealing the vastness of space, an endless expanse filled with unknown dangers and infinite possibilities. The new alien faction had seen the power of humanity, and they knew that the Earth was no longer the weak, defenseless planet it had once been. The galaxy had just learned a powerful lesson, Earth was not to be taken lightly. And as the camera zoomed out even further, the true scale of the challenges humanity would face became clear. The galaxy was filled with ancient enemies, ruthless mercenaries, and terrifying threats. But Earth had shown it could fight back.